GitHub is much more than the place where you can store code. But let's see it in action. Meet Mona, a developer who's just been assigned a new project. Mona uses GitHub projects to manage her tasks and track iterations of work. GitHub's customizable views, filters, and layouts make it easy for teams to work their way. Mona quickly sets up an on-demand development environment using GitHub Codespaces. No more fighting with dependencies. She dives into coding with GitHub Copilot, making her code more readable and efficient. She then sets up automated testing with GitHub Actions, easily version controlled like the rest of her code. Meanwhile, Mona's colleague had set up repository rules to enforce DevOps governance practices across their GitHub organization. Mona avoids leaking secrets by using GitHub Advanced Security secret scanning push protection, and also identifies potential security vulnerabilities using code scanning. In this short video, we've seen how GitHub can streamline your experience throughout the development lifecycle.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you're joining. Welcome to Open Source Friday. We made it, y'all, this week. It was special, but you know what? Last week we had an amazing week at GitHub because we were all about celebrating maintainers. It was all open source all week. I had a great time. Today is another nerve-wracking day for your host here, because we have an incredible guest, and I'm so lucky that she's taking the time to be here today and talk about a topic that we haven't delved too much into, but we need to. Before we go and before we introduce our amazing guest, I do want to share, especially because we're coming off this week, I was mentioning earlier, I do want to share something that maybe it might be news to some of y'all, it might not. If you haven't heard of this, definitely please go check it out if you're a maintainer. So this is the maintainer community here at GitHub. We have an amazing program manager that's in charge of keeping all these maintainers space open for networking, for sharing best practices. And internally at GitHub, we actually put on an event that's invitation only, specific for this amazing group of folks. So please, if you are a maintainer of an open source project and are interested in joining our maintainer group, which will give you access to a just incredible think tank of great brains and very, very, like, you'll get in there and be like, wow, the person who created this project that I use every single day is here. So it's super exciting. please join, so that next year when we do the fun thing that we don't really talk about in public because it's very exclusive and only for maintainers, when we do it again, then hopefully I'll see you there. But it's a really good opportunity for all of you to just share best practices and really just have a good time. So we're here on Open Source Friday. We try and keep a very diverse set of topics. And of course, if you have been hearing anything about AI this week, last week, it feels like every single day there is a brand new gush of news, right? And this is an interesting topic, complex topic, right? All of these amazing tools that are coming up that are going to make our life super easy also concern us, concern developers, concern maintainers. We think about code quality. I'm already thinking about Hacktoberfest, y'all, this year. Those are the thoughts that I'm sure cross the minds of maintainers and of folks who depend on open source, which literally is every single one of us. So to discuss this topic, we have an incredible guest today. The landscape is here, it's not going anywhere, and we need this kind of leadership to really help us understand where we're going, especially when it comes to open source. Our guest today is Demetris Cheatham. She sits on the executive leadership team to the CEO of GitHub. She is the chief of staff to the CEO of GitHub, which the chief of staff is a trusted partner. This is our CEO's right hand, I would dare say. Demetris is particularly passionate about the evolving nature of open source, especially now in the age of AI. Before her time as the chief of staff to the CEO, Demetris was a senior director for diversity, inclusion, and belonging strategy at GitHub, the global diversity and inclusion lead at Red Hat, and was formerly, and y'all, this is why I'm wrecked and so nervous, the first woman and youngest executive director to lead the National Bar Association in the United States, for the oldest and largest international network of over 65,000 predominantly African-American attorneys and judges. So without further ado, let me please welcome Demetris. Oh my gosh, Demetris, I'm so nervous. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I don't know why you're so nervous. I'm the nervous one. I'm showing up as like a complete fangirl to you, Andrea. I even put on my little I borrowed headphones from my boyfriend just to be like you. And then I show up and you're like, oh, we stopped wearing those like years ago. So I got to give me some little fancy headphones like you. So glad to hang out with you.
No, in total honesty, it depends on the vibe of the hair, the headphones that I wear. My Open Source Friday crew, they're lovely and they don't care. So thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Shout out to the boyfriend for loaning us the headphones. Good man. Welcome to Open Source Friday. I am so thrilled that you're here. Reading your bio is, oh my gosh, like chills. Just so many accomplishments. And honestly, I remember when they announced that you were the new chief of staff to the CEO, and I did an internal yes, very loudly. I might have gone like yes, because I know, I can speak as an employee of the company, what a trusted voice you are, and how it was a good feeling. We knew that there was someone that was going to be advising our CEO that definitely had our trust and the best interests of developers and the platform. So thank you. Thank you. You've had an incredible career. I want to learn a little bit about how did you get to this position? I mean, I know how the announcement was made, right, as an employee, but I'd love to understand a little bit better about like, how did you get your start in tech, and then how did you arrive at this role?
Yeah, I don't even know how to shorten that answer. So let me just go how to I got started in tech. So my undergraduate degree, a lot of people don't know this, but it's actually in computer science from North Carolina A&T State University. I wish I could say that I had one of those stories where, somebody was like, oh, I bought my first computer at the age of 10 and fell in love with programming. It did not happen that way at all. I was in the library at my, middle school, and there was a magazine sitting on a table. And it was an article in there that said the top 10 college majors that get paid the most, right? And at that time, I think my mom probably was making less than $10,000 a year, and she had 2 kids in college and then me. And so it was all about the money. I'm not ashamed to say it, right? And so I looked at that article, and they had the list, and number 1 on the list was like a chemical engineering major. And I was all about vinegar and baking soda,
No,
volcanoes. That was about the most that I could do with chemistry and science. And so the next in the line was computer science and computer engineering. I said, that's it. So I just held on to it from that one particular time. And so ended up going to A&T, majored in computer science, came out as one of the top graduates there. And I was recruited to Goldman Sachs out of there, where I was going to be a hardcore programmer, right? C++. So I'm totally dating myself. And my second day of work was September the 11th. Like, that's a whole nother story.
No
for
way.
a podcast. And so I was tapped right after that time to join the business continuity planning department, where I actually was more on the business side of things and got away from the technical side. And so it was because of my team leadership skills and all those things that they, entrusted me that early, fresh out of undergrad, to sit on a tiger team of one of the most important areas in the company at that time. And so I look back at that and it was amazing, right? That young, but I also use that to serve as a word of caution too, because I see over and over again in tech how women in particular are often tapped to be team leads or even go into program management. And it actually gets them away from the hardcore technical skills. Like, the men get to sit and learn more about coding and become distinguished engineering. And we get sent on this path. And sometimes it looks amazing, but in the long run, we realize that might not have been the best choice. And so I always use that to talk to managers about being thoughtful about who you're tapping for those team leads, but also for women, young women, or any woman that's coming up in tech, to make sure that you're very intentional about how you drive your own career and what you ultimately want to get out of it. And so that's how I got my, start in tech. Again, more on the business side of things. Ended up going back and getting my JD MBA, my law degree, and my MBA. So many twists and turns of my career, as my bio alluded to. Landed back into tech on the business side, leading diversity and inclusion at Red Hat. Was recruited over here at GitHub. And then about a year ago, I had an amazing sponsor in Shelly McKinley, who's the head of our legal office here at GitHub. She literally said, Demetris, I know your resume and you got a lot of experience that I think that Thomas could really use. Why don't you throw your hat in the ring for chief of staff? And it was something that I had never considered. And they put me through the paces through the interview, but that's how I arrived here at this role. And so I'm truly grateful to be able to spend a lot of time with Thomas and really, supporting him and shepherding the business of the vision of GitHub.
This is amazing. First of all, I did not know that you had to interview for that role. That's the whole thing. My brain exploded. I thought that was an appointment type of scenario where you get appointed.
No.
What an incredible trajectory. And there was a flurry of reactions in the comments when you were talking about how we should be mindful to not do our own typecasting, right? Like, not put ourselves, women and in general, I think underrepresented communities in tech. Like, we're always we're eager to get through the door, and I'm like, put me whatever, coach, and I'll try and prove myself, and then hopefully, then I can go and do the tech if that's what I'm really passionate about. But normalize not maybe being passionate about the tech, because hey, that's awesome. If coding is not the thing, it's not the thing, and that's totally fine. Right. There are plenty of opportunities in technology for us, and also normalize being an F for the money. Yeah, I got bills too, Demetris. So this is it.
Yeah, that's it. That absolutely it. And like I said, no matter where you want to go in tech or where you land, you just be in the driver's seat of it. You decide it. Don't let anyone tap you and end up sending you down a path but again, I am so grateful for my path. I wouldn't change anything about it, but I always just use my example and my career story is one for people to kind of glean what they need from it.
Ladies and gentlemen who are watching this, all of you humans, this is your keynote speaker for whatever you have coming up. So just saying, I'll be a manager. I'll filter the request if you like, but this is an incredible story. Thank you so much for sharing it. We are at such a interesting time in tech now. Like, it's great for people who've been here for a while, for people who are just starting, students talking about AI, right? This incredible it is not new, because we all know that it's not a new topic, but just in the past couple of years, it's now from news. I think we made peace with the fact that it's not going anywhere, and we have to demystify it. We have to learn it. We have to make it work for us. You've been having such incredible conversations internally at GitHub. I was part of one that you had, actually, like open forums, and doing a ton of research, just exploring this rise, this explosion of generative AI, with a specific focus that's dear and near to all of us who are here today at Open Source Friday, and it's the impact on open source communities. What does this mean for open source communities? I love to understand a little bit, like, how was it that you came about, really starting to explore this? Because there's a lot of conversations about impact to developers, not so much about this particular segment of the developer population. All of us folks that do things for free.
I get it. I can say that this isn't new for me. This is a natural extension of work that I had already been doing. When I was leading diversity and inclusion at Red Hat, I created an initiative called All In, and we had All In for Students, which focused on getting more underrepresented students in open source. By the way, I have to say that the initiative is hitting its 3-year mark, where we set a goal to get 5,000 new students into open source, and we are going to hit that goal. And I just received word last night that we are upping that to 50,000 students now. So just want to shout out to the social impact team at GitHub for just knocking that, work out of the park. And then there was another initiative of this program called All In for Maintainers. Shout out to the Chaos Project, who is leading this work now. But that's where I absolutely fell in love with open source communities. Like, open source communities, they just became like just a part of my heart. And just, I've always been thinking about underrepresented students. But then I realized the power of, communities and maintainers and the work that they do. And so at GitHub, we were doing the work to enable open source communities to welcome even more people to the work, and ultimately so that they can change the world. So now, with the rise of generative AI, I think we get to empower even more open source communities, exponentially more. So to me, AI is not a replacement for developers or open source community. It's the turbo boost, or the spinach to Popeye, so you will, so that open source communities can do more, even more.
That's exactly the point. I love that you just said it so beautifully. We're here to augment, not replace, right? Like,
That's
still,
right.
we get to keep our jobs, but I appreciate that you mentioned also the All In Open Source project. I shared the link, folks. If you haven't heard of this, please go check it out, because there is some good stuff happening there. I know we have some folks joining from Africa, and the Chaos Project has been doing a ton of work in Africa. Like, they've been just on fire. So thank you for that initiative. Super impactful to open source. You sound like so optimistic about the future and how generative AI can actually empower and like be a good impact to open source. Like, what makes you so positive? You're one of the few people that I've listened to that actually have a like a much more, of course, it's a very informed outcome, like opinion, right? So what makes you so, I don't know, have such a positive outlook on what's to come?
You know what? I think what makes me so positive is thinking about what was in the past. Back in the day, okay, that made me sound really old saying back in the day, but whatever. But for anyone that took programming classes in college, say 10 or so years ago, maybe even 20, I guarantee that most of us have a story about pulling all-nighters in the computer lab, not coding to solve the world's most pressing problems, but instead just taking turns gathering around a computer, going through one of our classmates' code, looking line by line for a missing semicolon or that damn closing curly bracket or whatever. It's a story if you were helping. It's a nightmare if it was your code that everybody was trying to solve. And so I just think back to all of those collective hours of brilliant minds just going down the drain. Or worse yet, I think of the number of people, Andrea, that probably could have been making so many contributions to tech right now, but changed their majors over a freaking missing semicolon, right? Like, it was just the thing. So I can tell you, when I first started seeing AI, the power of AI, specifically GitHub Copilot in action, it took me right back to those computer lab days. It showed me an alternative ending. You know how Netflix, where you can like look at all the different endings to the same movie? Now I see a different ending for those folks. Like, especially in the areas of learning and productivity. I'm extremely optimistic about how AI will change who gets to become a developer, how the next generation of developers get to learn how to code and contribute from everyone around the world, being able to code and contribute in their own natural language. I think about my daughter and the one other girl in her middle school programming class no longer having to stress about raising their hand in class, because now they have a judgment-free zone, a co-pilot that's judgment-free to answer all those questions and help them to learn how to write their functions, right? I think about, from a productivity standpoint, all of the students, now they're going to be able to spend their time innovating and working on creative solutions. Like, they're going to be able to do some big shit in the world rather than screwing around with those colors, right? Or less people getting judged or downright rejected in open source communities because their second or third language, their English grammar isn't perfect. So that's just what I'm optimistic about on the learning and productivity side. I also have to mention security. That's something that we're all hearing about, especially here at GitHub and Microsoft. But I think sometime over the past year, I was listening to a talk. I don't know if it was Thomas or actually one of our other DevRel homies or someone else at GitHub. And they had a slide up about software bugs and vulnerabilities. And it said in bold, found doesn't mean fixed. I was like, you're right. How many folks are out there, maintainers are sitting on these nice little bug reports that absolutely have no time to deal with them, right? But now with AI, and you mentioned it in the reel that you showed, through secret scanning and code scanning, we're not only finding these bugs, we are fixing them too, like automatically for these maintainers. And so swatting those bad boys down, swatting bugs, pun intended. Again, think about how much more productive maintainers are going to be now that they can get a co-pilot who's going to help them address those bugs. And also how much more welcoming open source communities will be when people feel like the bugs that they are reporting to maintainers are actually getting fixed. A more secure community is also a more welcome community, in my opinion.
Oh, 100%. I love that the found now means fix, right? There was an amazing blog post. I posted it on the comments box after the stream. Our viewers can go and watch it, read it, because it does bring an incredible point about just freeing out the time that you would spend doing this task for innovation, for the things that actually matter. And honestly, that's where your talent kind of goes to waste sometimes, when you feel like I'm doing the same thing over and over. There's gotta be a better way. And I think this is definitely the better way. Thank you for mentioning about the language and natural language. I don't know if you noticed, the accent is strong today, family, because I'm going to Colombia next week. So I've been doing a lot of documentation in Spanish. But it's definitely, it's a challenge. I mean, it's already kind of extremely scary, fundamentally, when you try to make a contribution in public. The beauty of open source, when your first language is not English. And I already feel insecure about how good my code is, because it's frankly not that great. And now I'm also insecure about the way that I'm speaking and how I'm explaining this in an issue, or how I'm submitting a pull request. So I think these are things that I definitely lean on AI for, and it does help. It does give me a little bit more psychological safety when I'm doing things that I'm out of my comfort zone. Programming language that are well out of my comfort zone. Having Copilot, I'm not lying. I know I work here, but I use Copilot every single day. And I can't imagine a time where I just will not. So it's amazing that those tools are now available to maintainers, available to contributors, and are going to be a part of what open source is in the next decade. 100%. This is a comment I have to bring up, and I'm sorry to interrupt, because we have to, Sean, shout out to Sean, because this is the yes moment right here. You gotta get beyond the fear of AI and see the hope of AI. I need that in a t-shirt, please, and in a poster behind me.
Yeah, we're gonna get that. And I have to say, hey, Sean, that was my former next door neighbor. He's another tech evangelist. That's so amazing. So hey, Sean.
Thank you. But it's incredible, because we do have to, and I know, folks, we're talking about the positives. Obviously, we're gonna touch into the challenges, because big moments in tech history, big moments in history, period, don't happen without challenge and don't happen through having to overcome some things. And I'm sure for all of you who've had maybe not the greatest experience utilizing this type of technology, you're still very skeptical. We're still in the fear and like, I don't really like this phase. One of the things that I watched, I think it was a keynote, and I won't name the company, but there was something being said about how, well, what if Copilot does this on its own? I'm like, there's no such thing as doing something on their own. It's you're in control. You're the developer. You're the one that has to approve. Whatever it is that's happening is augmenting your abilities. So obviously the skepticism, one of the challenges, the fear, mine personally, another challenge. What challenges have you seen, Demetris? Like, what are you hearing from maintainers? I know that maintainers talk, and I'll have to like bring up someone that's an amazing maintainer actually brought up a really good point. I'll share it after, but I'd love to hear from you. Like, what are you hearing out there from maintainers?
Yeah, from maintainers, and even before I get to maintainers, right? I'll, as you mentioned, I've been doing a lot of listening to various people. And in this age of AI, I just have to say we have to be careful, right? We've advanced software development more in the last little over a year, and than we've done arguably in decades, right? Like this is like the biggest advancement. But in the words of one of my mentors, her name is Doreen Kelly, she always says, well done, but we're not done yet. So I heard from a hiring manager during one of my listening sessions the other day that they said that they welcome entry-level software engineering candidates to use Copilot for their technical interviews, right? And then he said something interesting because I'm like, yes, Copilot, this is awesome. And then he said, to date, he has not hired one of them yet. So I was like, it was just like mind blowing to me. And so what he was explaining is writing the code, that's actually the easy part. It's understanding the concepts and your thinking behind the code. That's what employers find valuable. I say AI is like that open book test, right? That you don't study for because you're like, oh, I'll just get the answers when I show up on the day of the test. And those are usually the ones that you end up not doing well on, right? And I know speaking as a college professor. So I just say this as a word of caution to those of you who are learning how to code using AI. Leverage it to supplement or augment, as you said, your knowledge. Don't rely on it to replace your knowledge. We named it Copilot for a reason. You are still the pilot. Like you're the pilot. It's meant to be someone that kind of sits in the passenger seat with you. And so we also have to be careful, and this is, going to your question specifically around what we're hearing from maintainers. AI to me is truly going to lower the barriers into open source, into tech in a way that we haven't seen before. At GitHub, we have a goal. We recently announced that we are going to help empower 1 billion new developers on the planet. That's 10% of the world's population. So now imagine all of these developers coming into open source, which is where I hope they'll land. We're going to have this influx of new developers. Maintainers are already reporting burnout, already reporting their inability to keep up with the contributors that they do have. So you can't invite everyone to open source and not be able to support them. It's like you can't invite everybody to a party and not have enough food for them to be able to eat. So in open source terms, we can't create a way for them to come into our communities and not be able to support them and give them a way to participate and make meaningful contributions. Same thing with security. You mentioned maintainers month, right? Or, the week that we just had at GitHub. I was not able to attend any of this session because I was on vacation, actually, a 7-day vacation, which was awesome. Side note, y'all take your vacations. Burnout is real. Focus on your wellness. But Leah, who actually supports me, she actually attended the session. So she came back and she shared something interesting with me. She said that many maintainers shared that they're seeing a rise in AI-generated bug reports that identify non-issues, is wasting their time, potentially leading them down an attacker's path with AI-generated phishing campaigns. Like that's speaking at the heart of security, right? Because these reports, they look, identical to a real contributor's bug report, it's hard to tell whether to take them seriously. As I said earlier, AI means more, but that's more of everything, the good as well as the bad actors. So we have to make sure we are proactively thinking about that and addressing this with our security features at GitHub so that we can help maintainers, not put the burden on them, but also help them deal with these bad actors as well. So I have full faith in our security team and those like Mike Hanley and our head of engineering and the work that they're doing. So look for us to, support maintainers even more with, the bad actors in the open source communities.
You bring such an interesting point. I love and this is a quote that's very talked about in diversity and inclusion conversations about what is the diversity is. No, inviting everybody to the party, but then asking them to dance or something. I'm completely messing it up. But it's in terms of like providing the opportunity, but going beyond providing the opportunity, especially for all these new folks that are coming into the world and for our amazing, incredible goal of adding 1 billion new devs. And hopefully they will land in open source. So AI poses like such an incredible opportunity for inclusion. What have you seen? Like what's made you, I don't know, change your thinking about maybe what AI can actually do for inclusion and technology, and specifically in open source?
Yeah, I'm going to wade in a little bit of a dangerous territory here, right? I'm going to mention a word.
Let's go. We need to go there.
Let's do it. Let's do it. There's a word and a concept in open source that's become very taboo, and it's called meritocracy. And meritocracy is like one of the founding principles of open source, right? It means may the best idea win. Like you just let everybody go, and usually the best idea, the best people will bubble to the top. Diversity and inclusion advocates, they don't like meritocracy as a system or as a word, because of all of its flaws, right? Meritocracy has been proven to create a system where white, educated, oftentimes wealthy men, they're the ones that coincidentally keep coming up with the best ideas and rising to the top, right? So I'll give you an example that just kind of hits this point home, hopefully, in my response. I had a CEO, not Thomas, this happened years ago. I remember we were having a discussion around meritocracy, and he was like, Demetris, I'm a big proponent of meritocracy. Like, I will hire the best of the best. I don't even care if it's a purple dinosaur. And so I said, that's cool and all, but how are you making sure that your systems and policies and structures that you have in place in your company are ensuring that that purple dinosaur even makes it in front of you in the first place? That's what he didn't have an answer to. And so anybody that's been toiling away with me, all of my colleagues and practitioners in DEI, we've been trying to address those inequities in those systems and policies and structures for years. And it's been a mixed degree of success, but it hasn't been fast enough. So I'll admit, when I saw AI, I said, yes, we can finally start making some headway on that. We might be able to either one, we can dismantle meritocracy altogether, or two, we might be able to level the playing field in a way that's never been done before, so that meritocracy can finally live into the ideal in which it was created. And I mean, I got so excited about it, right? We talked about the natural language and, the documentation and all those things. AI can solve for that. So I was like, we're going to do it. We're finally going to do it. And so I was running with it, but as always, I always stop to pause and say, we need to hear from others. We need to hear from others. And so we went on some internal listening tours. At GitHub, we talked to people in the open source community, and overwhelmingly we heard, Demetris, not so fast. Like, this ain't it. This ain't it. It's going to help, but it won't obliterate meritocracy or the fallacies of meritocracy as we know it, as long as humans are involved. And I know in AI, you might think, oh, we're getting rid of all the humans. You're not. There's people that's creating the AI, that's the pilots to the co-pilot as you speak. We will always have bias as long as humans are involved. And it will be 100%, because we're humans, and humans are perfectly imperfect. So therefore, I had to kind of pause and rethink some things. I was going to go out with, AI is finally going to obliterate meritocracy. I don't think so. We got to do some more work on this a little bit more.
It's great to hear your perspective because you worked in this field for so long. This has been a big part of your career. So now seeing like how, yes, optimistic with a pause, optimistic without forgetting that there is still a human component. But I think, like you said, it's going to accelerate, hopefully, when we get to a better place and diversity and inclusion in tech. We got a lot of work to do, folks. That's why we got to do things like this and show up for each other, because it's the only way. We have a lot of folks that join the stream that, well, obviously they're GitHub users, or maybe not. If you're not a GitHub user, welcome. Thank you. I hope you open an account today. I know like GitHub is obviously the home for open source. During this time, especially, like how are we maintaining our commitment to open source, especially with everything that's happening through this huge transformation?
Yeah, I am so proud of the work that we're doing at GitHub, and it's just for open source communities, right? We have not forgotten the open source community. I think about where we are on accessibility, and I think yesterday was Global Accessibility Awareness Day, and we had a company-wide day of learning where we were specifically talking about accessibility. We offer accessibility settings and accommodations to open source developers throughout open source communities. We are hosting so many open source projects, like it's an open source community called NVDA. They have a screen reader, a company, and they help people with disabilities across the world. I think it's like 250,000 globally access the tools they need to code. We highlighted them yesterday at GitHub. That's just on accessibility, led by Ed Summers, who is just amazing. We have our accelerator fund. This year we selected a cohort of 20 open source AI projects to participate. They do it's a 10-week program where maintainers receive an initial sponsorship, of $20,000 to work on their project. They get paired with guidance and workshops from open source leaders with an end goal of building durable streams of funding for their work. I know when you opened up, you talked about, hey, this is the work that we do for free. We're actually working on that at GitHub. Amazing. Because we want people to be able to have, a standard of living, be able to make a living wage, and even more from contributing to open source. That leads, us into our open source fund, or our, GitHub sponsors work. We launched this GitHub fund. We just did it this year, right? And we make early investments into 10 open source startups, doing everything from detecting hallucinations and AI generated images. That's one of the companies that we invested in, to, streaming notifications through multiple channels. So we look for those that are using AI to advance AI, right? So it all comes full circle. And so that's some work that we're really, really proud that we're doing. I'm plugging those. We have a pretty diverse cohort, and we want even more diversity. So make sure you share this with your friends and your open source folks that have started companies or just doing projects that actually want to make money. Make sure you're paying attention to these efforts that we're doing at GitHub. And I have to say, you probably have heard just about every answer that I've given about education, right? Like, it's just near and dear to my heart. We are so proud at GitHub. We are the home to 5 million students. Amazing. 200,000 educators, 2,000 educational institutions. We've made Copilot available for free. Educators, all students, they get Copilot. Like, it's not a matter of if they can't afford it or whatever, because we know it's important to give those educators access to Copilot, because they are on the front lines of creating the next generation of Copilots of students and open source developers in many instances. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention our GitHub stars. Oh, yes. Our universe, we have almost 80 GitHub stars who are leading the way. They create new programming for open source maintainers that allow them to lead through the age of AI. We don't release anything without making sure that our GitHub stars are front and center. And so, it's just so much cool stuff. So you need to be a GitHub star if you're not one. Like, that's the thing that you get to pop your collar in open source about. And so we're proud of the partnership that we have with them as well. So we're doing a lot. And I didn't even name everything, but I know we got like limited time. So I'll just
so great. I am so excited for this cohort. because they're all AI focused companies. So at the end of their cohort, they do a demo day, folks. I'll bring it back to Open Source Friday and we'll share it here so that you can tune in and join, because I attended their demo day for last year's cohort, which was the first one, if I'm not mistaken. And it was unbelievable. It was incredible that these companies were just getting started, were just having proof of concepts, because every single one of them could have very well been a company, standalone at that time. So amazing talent. Shout out to the folks at GitHub Education, because they're out there doing the work and making these tools available to students and their instructors, their professors, for free is absolutely remarkable. The power that you put in the hands of this next generation of developers, it's incredible. And also the professors, right? Like, there are things that AI can help you with and tasks that you don't want to do. You're a college professor yourself, so you know. So it's amazing. I love to see what this next generation of developers is going to be doing and how this is going to actually help open source as a whole. Now, if there's young developers who are watching this, and they're new to open source or they're new to development, and they're thinking, maybe I will leverage these tools. Maybe I'll actually dip my toe in it. I didn't think I want to, but Demetris has convinced me today that this is an empowering, augmenting tool. Do you have any advice for those folks?
Yeah, I do. And I want to take a quick moment to take a step back. I've been talking about students a lot. And it might be because I just finished grading the final exams for my class or something. There are so many pathways into open source, into becoming a developer. And being a student, a university student, is a great privilege. So hopefully don't let all of my focus on students in this color you if you have chosen not to go the university route. We welcome everyone, and Copilot is there for you as well. So my advice to open source developers, students, non-students, anybody, no matter what generation, embrace AI. Don't be afraid of it. We talked about the fear. It's not the Terminator, right? It's not Arnold Schwarzenegger coming to take over the world. I've seen so many instances where there was advancements in technology and fear caused many people to be left behind. Don't repeat the mistakes of the past. We are not, the future is now. Like, everybody keeps talking about the future of AI and the future of software development. We're living the future now. And so please be a part of it. There's so many learning tools, free opportunities, Open Source Fridays, ways that you can participate. And again, get on GitHub. You're going to find a community that's going to meet you where you are on your AI journey. Don't wait. Get started today.
I love that. So we're a community of action here at Open Source Friday. So if because of today you end up dipping your toes, if today is the day that you finally give GitHub Copilot a try, drop me a message, please. Send me a DM. I will send you a little something, because it's amazing. We gotta get beyond those fears. Demetris, this has been such a fun conversation. I am so grateful for your time here, and you represent an incredible, your brain. I'm like, please, more Demetris. So we have to hopefully have you back again
anytime,
so that we can continue exploring this topic. I'm so grateful that people like you who are passionate about open source are helping us shepherd ourselves into this new age. So thank you. I'd love to know what's going on next for you. Like, are you going to any conferences? Or anything in particular you're excited to, and like the future, anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, now that I have Thomas all squared away, I get to actually do the thing that I love to do, which is actually going out into open source communities, conferences around the world. I'll admit, GitHub has a perception issue right now. We've been doing so much with AI, focused on how companies and enterprises are leveraging AI, that some people think that GitHub has forgotten about the open source community. And as I listed all of our programs earlier, that's not further from the truth. And so I will be going around the world, making sure people still know that GitHub prioritizes them, keeping them top of mind. I'll be at Render ATL for anybody that's there. Please come and see me speak. Love to see you. I'll be in Berlin at the keynoting at the We Are Developers conference. But most importantly, find me everywhere, connecting with open source maintainers, stars, again, as Andrea said, you drop her a DM, please drop me one as well. I think my Twitter handle is there, LinkedIn or something. Let us figure out ways that we can partner. And so just going to be out and about in the open source community. And that's what I'm really, really excited about.
I am so grateful for you saying the thing out loud that I'm like, because this, you folks, and I appreciate every single one of you that joins us every Friday. You know, myself and Kadesh are always talking about, you know, the love that we have for this community, for maintainers, for contributors. But this is someone from the executive team of the company, folks. We have not forgotten about open source. And Demetris is going to be on a evangelizing and empowering campaign out there to make sure that we all feel supported and augmented. I like that. Augmented.
Word of the day.
It is a good word. It is a good word. So excited that you're traveling to these conferences and sharing. Are you a person that likes to be like talk to when you're in a conference? I have to ask, because some folks, you know, they prefer to have like, they're like, don't come at me. But if folks see you out and about, are you okay with them saying hi?
Oh, talk to me, especially if you're buying me a drink. Just kidding. I'll probably be buying you a drink. Let's talk. Like, I love it. That's how I learn. Like, that's how I hear from open source communities, those informal water cooler conversations at conferences. So come and talk to me. I'm from the South. We love to talk to everybody. Come on.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So you hear it if you're going to be in Berlin, if you're going to be at Render ATL or one of these other places where Demetris is going to be, and you have thoughts, you have ideas. How can we better support open source? How can we better? Please, that's your person right there. Reach out and have a chat. Demetris, it's been absolutely fantastic to have you here today. I am so grateful for your time. You started this conversation talking about something that I actually been thinking about a lot, this typecasting of your. So we left here at Open Source Friday today with advice our professional life. Like our underrepresented communities take that from today, along with all this amazing advice and hope for how we're embracing AI and how we're supporting open source at GitHub. So grateful for your time. I have to throw in a question that wasn't on the questions, but I have to because it's not every day that we get an opportunity to speak to someone like you here. So if you had a time machine, and I'm sorry, please, and you could go back to when you started your career, and you had an option to do one thing different, can you think of something that you would do? And I know you said I wouldn't do anything different. These are the hopes that someone that's starting maybe questioning themselves. Maybe I know I have imposter syndrome every day. Some days it's worse than others.
Yeah.
But is there any advice that you will give yourself maybe when you started?
Okay, I'm going to give two pieces of advice. Not take out so many student loans to supplement my lifestyle rather than pay for my education. That's one. But the second one is don't be afraid. Like, society, research, all the things will tell you that you don't belong. And I listened to so many of those stories throughout the earlier part of my career. And then once I finally got over that through lots of coaching, therapy, like shout out to all the support systems, I have them all. I actually was belonging a long time before I knew it. Get to the table. Never let anyone take you out of a room that you belong into. And so I probably would have pulled up my chair a lot sooner in some of these conversations and in some of these rooms. And so those are some of the things that I would have done a little bit differently there. But again, my journey was there for a reason, because I would not have been able to give that advice but for me going through my journey. And so you'll get
100%,
there.
100%. All right, folks, we gotta take that, and I think we're gonna finish on that note, because that is unbelievably empowering advice. For all of us who doubt ourselves, get to the table, folks. We can do it. We can do it. Thank you so much. That's amazing. We can do it with fear, but we do it anyway. Do it scared, right? Do it scared.
Do it scared. Anyway. That's courage. That's what the definition of courage is. Happy Friday, everyone.
Thank you so much, Demetris. Thank you to everyone who joined. Juanpa says Demetris la más, and I'm gonna translate this because Juanpa, you gotta means like you're la mera mera, means that you're the top. So thank you. We appreciate you.
I appreciate that.
Thank you so much to Sean. Thank you to Peruma. Thank you to everyone who joined. We appreciate your time here at Open Source Friday. Please, let's say goodbye to Demetris with some massive emojis on the chat. Thank you. Don't forget to follow Demetris. Here's LinkedIn. I will post the Twitter as well. So go ahead and connect. And if you see Demetris, if you're lucky enough to be in the same place where she is, reach out. Thank you, Demetris. We appreciate you. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Y'all, I died. I am so excited. This was such an exciting conversation for me personally. I hope every single one of you who tune in took something with you, whether it be about maybe a different perspective on what AI can do for open source maintainers. One of the quotes that I got from Demetris before, and actually we used it on the meetup group to announce the event, was, what is it? Ask not what open source can do for AI, but what AI can do for open source. And hopefully after today, you have a better outlook, or maybe beginning of opening a window there to have a more positive opinion. And something else, if you take nothing else from this show, first of all, Demetris is awesome. Find your seat at that table right now. Don't wait. Don't wait to start trying AI, because this is the way that, the future is now. So go for it. And open source is very near and dear to GitHub's mission. It has been from the beginning and will continue it forever. Supporting maintainers, creating these programs for folks like you. It's very much at the core of what we do. So we love you. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope to see you next week. I think we're gonna be talking to the folks from Marlin Firmware. Shout out to Scott. We're gonna have some demos. So I appreciate every single one of you that was here today. Thank you for joining. Share. Sabat, you needed to hear this today. So did I. Thank you. Appreciate every single one of you. We'll see you next time in the next Open Source Friday. And if you're a maintainer, please don't forget, join the maintainer group. Send in your request. I know I saw a comment about it being a bit backed up. I'll help in this week and take a look and see, but please send in your request. Appreciate you all. Happy Friday. Take the rest of the day off. Demetris says so. Someone with some authority to actually say that to some. Bye, y'all. Love you.